I was born in Queens, New York, educated there through college. I was fortunate enough to go to Queens College, which is part of the City University of New York, and basically received a free education. I left Buffalo, where I had been working for 3 years at the state hospital, and moved to work in Trenton, New Jersey, as the first non-medical CEO of Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. And it was there that I began to live my openly gay life at that time. I moved here, as I said, in the fall of 1979. And the leadership of Shar Zahav, which in those days was almost exclusively gay men, a few women. And in the 70s and early 80s, there really was a lot of disagreement between men and women throughout the community. Lesbian and gay community were just a mirror of what was going on. It was during the heyday of the women's movement, and women had a different way of operating and relating than men did. And often people would talk over each other rather than to each other to try to understand each other. And that the synagogue created this Sunday program at Kaiser Hospital, the Kaiser Brunch program. And I ended up being both executor to a few people, to their estates, but more importantly, for a number of years, I chaired the synagogue committee dealing with sickness, and we were primarily dealing with AIDS at the time. What was absolutely wonderful was I had a mailing list that was by zip code. And whenever we got a request for someone needing help, whether it was trips to the doctor, whether it was food, whatever it might be, we used the zip code directory. And it included former members as well. And during all those years, we never got a rejection from anybody when we called to ask them to provide assistance to someone who lived in their neighborhood. It's very difficult for me to point out particular individuals who I've had an effect on, a positive impact on during my life. I truly believe in each aspect of my life that I've made a difference either by mentoring or support to friends, colleagues, co-workers. And so I'm proud of that in each position I've had that impact on people. The synagogue community, I've had significant impact in my work with Hillels, and my work with the executive directors of the Hillels in Northern California. I believe I helped mentor them to be successful in their roles. When we've had discussions at the first session of a leadership session, and people go around the room and say, why they agreed to participate. More than half the people will say, well, Paul asked me, and then he asked me again, and I'm here. And the other thing they used to laugh about and pick on me, is that I always kept some frozen chicken soup in the freezer, or was able to bake a cake or take out some chicken soup to bring to somebody who was ill. I kind of believe I'm here, still here, to fulfill a purpose, and that's why I do the amount of volunteering I do, rather than learning how to draw. which I would be a terrible failure at. The AIDS epidemic. It came upon us, rather suddenly. I became HIV positive in the mid-'80s. And I lost dozens of friends in New York, in Pennsylvania, where I had lived, in Los Angeles, Chicago, as well as the Bay Area. I never discussed it with my mother. Each of her siblings had lost a child. And I never wanted to put her through that. I think she figured it out. My mother was a smart enough woman, but she never asked the question, and I never offered. When my friend Brian, who I mentioned was the nurse who I worked with for years at Davies, the last week of his life, when I had to hospitalize him, they asked me about the do not resuscitate. And it was the first time I had to sign the do not resuscitate order. And I admit I cried. I walked away crying because I knew what I was doing. Coming out is not a one-sentence answer, as we will discuss probably during the next months. It is a process. I met my first partner, Alan Gold, in San Francisco at a Christmas Eve party in December of 1979. And we were together 5 years. And we purchased and renovated a Victorian off the Panhandle together. And we're still friends. It took a while. Those things are not easy, but we probably still speak once a week. And I met Bob in synagogue. I was younger and prettier and did a good job, and he came up to speak to me afterwards, and I was cordial, but just cordial. And he came back the next 2 weeks, and I didn't come to services the next 2 weeks. So he had dates with a number of other people he met. And then the congregation had a baseball game at the marina. And one of the women was really a jock. She was a strong baseball player. And I was playing shortstop. And she hit a line drive, which of course I didn't catch quickly enough, but it hit me in my thigh. And I went down. And Bob was on the sidelines, and he came running out as the doctor treated the fallen, injured baseball player. And so they helped me off the field, and someone produced an ice pack, and he held it on my leg and then talked to me for a while and asked me if I'd want to go out for a drink at a future time. And so we made a date, and we went out for a drink, and he then said, would you like to come for dinner one night? And I said, that would be fine. And we set up a date, and he spent the whole day making pastilla. I was 5 years old. I must have been bored during one summer. I think it was summertime, I'm not sure. And I took myself up to the elevated number 7 line at the 90th Street station, took the train 3 stops to the 74th Street station and climbed down to make a transfer to the underground subway, and stood at the end of the express track because I knew there was an E train and an F train, and I knew I had to be in the last car of the E train. And I got off at the 50th Street and 8th Avenue stop, and I walked 2 blocks to my grandfather's business, and he said, "Where is your mother?" I said, "Home." He said, "How did you get here?" And I used to be known by the word myself. And he said, "Oh, you are in trouble. I can't save you this time."